Alright, here we are, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, November 29th, 2012. We are walking Pickett's charge. We left the area right up there, which is the woods where General Pickett's division was stationed during the artillery attack, which lasted for about 2.5 hours before the infantry invasion. We're walking, which does not look like a very straight path. It does not look like the route that they would have taken, but I'm trying to not walk too far off of this path, because to be honest with you, I don't even know if I'm allowed to be here right now. But I was not going to come to Gettysburg without walking the charge. Still here pretty early in the charge here. At this point, there would have been some artillery fire coming from up there, which is Cemetery Ridge, the main Union battle line. And it's kind of hard to see, but we're going for that tree, that one single tree. It's a circular tree. That was what was called the angle, and that was the only area in which any Confederate troops reached the Union lines during the charge. Now, I'm going to look back here on the southern end. The Confederate line stretched over a mile wide. Come out of these fields all along this ridge. They were all going for that conversion point of that one circular tree. And they didn't fare very well, unfortunately. It was estimated that about 1/2 of every man that exited that tree line, as ordered to by General Lee himself, to attack this center of the Union lines at Gettysburg. 50% did not walk off this field unhurt. It's about 6,500 men out of 13,000. They marched shoulder to shoulder for a mile long, some places 10 deep. And they just marched and they took it. They took fire. And the closer they got, the worse the fire became. And the reason for that was during this particular period of time, which I guess is the same in any period of time, that short-range weapons were a lot more effective than long-range weapons. And this was the same in 1863, where long-range, they had their long-range artillery, and that was just about all that they could use. They shot giant cannonballs out here. They were in their early stages still. Very inaccurate. Not incredibly effective. I believe it was used more so as an intimidation technique than anything else. But when they started getting close, that's when things all started going a lot worse. The Civil War short-range artillery was pretty brutal. It was, try and imagine a cannon, but shoots like a shotgun. And what they did was they took big, like tin cans, like the size of like a coffee can, and they would fill it with small metal pellets. And they would shoot those pellets and they would come out and spread like a shotgun would. And they used to come out with such force that it was thought of that these particular pellets would shoot through They would go through 3 men before they would lose enough momentum and finally just die out. Now, you had to get pretty close for those to be somewhat effective. Obviously, if it spreads, the velocity is not going to last nearly as far as their long-range artillery did. But when we were talking about a Confederate army that thought it was a good idea to mass their men shoulder to shoulder and carrying big red flags, so it's not like they were being stealth, and they were going to march right up to these lines. And I don't know what they're planning on doing when they got there. I guess use the bayonet, though I don't think the bayonet's very effective. And it wasn't very effective, not during this war. Sorry, I'm getting a little out of breath here. We're coming up on... I don't think that this is. I believe that this is the location of the fence right here. No, it's not. It's up there. Never mind. Forget what I said. We're going to keep on walking. That tree is getting a lot bigger now, and you'd have to imagine, if you see how far we've walked so far, that with the large artillery firings taking place up to this point, that the Confederates would have lost a lot of men by now, and it was just going to get worse. We're going to be coming up here to the fence. It's right up near, there's actually a road that goes there now, and I don't remember the exact name of the road. There was a road here at this time, and it was separated, or a fence on one end of it. It was, obviously it was a dirt road. We're talking about 1863. And there was an indention in the road, and I'll be able to show it once we get up there. But this is where things got really, really bad for the Confederate soldiers on Pickett's charge. This is where they were getting close enough where the Union soldiers, who were all camped out, if you see, there's a statue up there next to that tree that we've been aiming towards the whole time. That's where the front lines, the main lines were. And right around the time the Confederates got up to this fence, and you can probably start to see it right about now, or probably about 50 or 60 yards from it. This is where the thousands of Union soldiers on that hill began to unload their muskets, the rifled musket, which was an incredibly effective weapon in this war. It was new to warfare. This was the first major war that used the rifled musket. It was incredibly accurate. Up to a couple hundred yards away, they could be up there at that statue and be shooting me and be somewhat accurate with it. I shot a .53 caliber round. It was massive. And if you got hit in the stomach, head, you were dead. If you got hit in the arm or the leg, that arm or leg is gone. They were going to have to chop it off. There was nothing they could have done. They were soft lead bullets, which means that when they struck you, it kind of acts the same way as a hollow point does now, where it hits you and it spreads, and it just caused horrible damage. As you can see, we're coming up to the fence now. I don't know how long of a video this is going to take. I'm taking this on my iPhone right now. But this was the fence. This fence was up 150 years ago during this battle. And an interesting story about this fence is that the Union artillery made it a point to knock down a small portion of this fence, maybe 20 yards wide. And the reason for that is they knew that the Confederate soldiers would go towards that area of the fence, so that way they wouldn't have to climb it. And all their short-range artillery and muskets, they had that area locked down, and those soldiers got nailed. We have to cross this road here. Across the road, never hit by any cars. You see up here at this tree that we have been following, this is a section of the Union lines referred to as the angle. This up here is the only place that the Confederate soldiers actually made it to the Union lines. They were led by a General Armistead, who famously took off his hat after crossing that fence. He stuck his hat on the end of his general's saber and held it up in the air to try and rally his men to follow him. And they did. And they got up here, right here where this, you see the stone wall, it's still up here. That's where they reached. They got up there, they turned the Union cannons on them. Whereas you see when we get up here that this is not the very top of the hill. And there was another Union line behind them. So Armistead and his men got blown away. And this is always known as the only area that they did reach the lines, but it's not that it did them any good. They got torn up here. Well, we're coming to the end of the charge. This is something I've always wanted to do. This is my first time here. And it's getting muddy. I'm going to go ahead and sign off.